Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co., and this is not To Back or Not To Back, which, granted, would be a really confusing title. This is going to be 20 late pledges. 20 late pledges to go ahead and go over, because right now, I'm currently at Gen Con, and there's not a chance on earth I'm able to get you a proper To Back or Not To Back today, and so we'll have another one next week. And in the meantime, enjoy yourself. If you're at Gen Con, enjoy Gen Con. If you're at home, enjoy Gen Cant. I believe the correct terminology is Gen Cant. There's a little mini convention where you, play a board game, which is, already a step in the right direction. In any case, this is 20 late pledges. I did another one of these maybe a month and a half ago. I'm not entirely sure when, but this is another 20 late pledges to go ahead and check out in case you missed it. But this one comes with a special little twist, a little rules adjustments as far as how I'm going to approach this one. This one specifically is campaigns that are not super large. And granted, I put an arbitrary limit on that. I just basically chose a bunch of campaigns that didn't fund above $500,000. These all have to be below $500,000 campaigns. They range from, I think, $30,000, $40,000 all the way up to around $300,000 in their scope of campaigns, but specifically tried to eliminate all the major ones that hit 500, a million, 2 million, all that. I got rid of all of those. We're focusing on smaller to mid-range creators today. As usual, I'll be going through these in alphabetical order. I'll be going through a bunch of open late pledges. I will try to avoid saying after every game that I talk about, and you can go ahead and late pledge this. Speaking of which, I have checked as of filming right now. All of these should be available to late pledge. There's one in particular that only has language editions available to late pledge, but I'm not entirely sure if that includes English copies or not. I left it in. I tried figuring it out, couldn't figure it out. I left it in, so it's either 20 games you can late pledge or 19 and a half games you can late pledge. In any case, let's go ahead and start this off. As usual, I'll be going through a bit of a recap, a brief overview of what the games are, but these are all games that if you missed them on crowdfunding, you can go ahead and check them out now and get in on those campaigns. Starting off with Black Sonata, Strange Shadows. Black Sonata Strange Shadows is the newest expansion to Black Sonata. There already is an expansion for this game. This is a solo or two-player, but primarily a solo hidden movement game. You're basically trying to figure out how to track down the hidden lady of the night or whatnot as you wander around trying to plan and predict her movements. It has a fascinating mechanism to the game that basically has you being able to run a solo hidden movement game without using an app, which is incredibly impressive and ambitious. The original game and expansion came out a while ago, and recently on crowdfunding they had a new expansion, the Strange Shadows expansion, which is what you can go ahead and check out today. We also have Coloma New Prospects, and I should note that one was over on Hive. Most of these are over on GameFound, and please take into account I am CMO of GameFound. I do look on a variety of platforms to try to find different late pledges. Hive had a bunch that were intriguing, GameFound had most of them, and BackKit, there's not an easy way to search on BackKit right now to see open late pledges, and so until there is an easy way to search, I'm going to be mostly utilizing platforms that do have an easier way to search. But with that, diving into Coloma New Prospects. This is coming to you from Final Frontier Games, and Coloma New Prospects takes the semi-worker placement, bidding, rondel kind of action game, which you're going to be trying to figure out what action you're taking, placing down your prospector on a center wheel, a magnetic center wheel, and then trying to figure out which lane you're trying to move towards. As far as, are you going on is there a showdown at the OK Corral? Well, that's actually at the end of the round, I believe. Or are you trying to move your wagon around the board? Are you trying to gather the resources, build various bridges or archways? And this comes with a new expansion, the new Prospect expansion, which gives you an entirely new path or entirely new way to build out your bridges and to have little pathways there. A bunch of new elements to the game, but Coloma in general has been one of Final Frontier's better received games, and this is your chance to check out the original game, the deluxe edition of the game, and the new Prospects expansion. We have Conquest Princess Fashionist Power, coming to you from Fight in a Box and Erune. Conquest Princess is a solo or cooperative game in which you're going to be taking control of I always forget the name of the ship. There's a ship that you're trying to take control of. I can't remember the name of it, but you are trying to dress up, save the galaxy. Does it say offhand? I don't remember where, but you are trying to, is it the tiara? It might be the tiara. But either way, you have the ship that you're trying to make sure goes through a bunch of missions over here. Each mission is going to have a different things you have to do in order to win, different challenges you have to overcome. It's going to be different mishmashes of challenges. The game comes with a ton of different intricate scenarios to go through, all giving you a unique challenge as far as how to survive while you try to power yourselves up, while you try to find ultimate fashion power and try to keep the tiara alive. It is an incredibly brutally satisfying and yet difficult cooperative or solo game that I definitely recommend checking out. We also have Cysmic from Stowii Games. This one is a more recent funding over here. Cysmic is it's an incredibly ambitious cinematic game. That's what this game is. It's a cinematic experience. there's going to be it's a degree of not really area control, but it's not really area control in a typical sense. You are moving around the board, but you're not really trying to gain control of areas. You are trying to fight each other to a degree. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to blast off your spaceship from the planet before the other players do so, and so you're trying to make sure you get everything you need to do so, while again making sure you get in the way of others. It has an intricate card system, which you're going to have 10 cards every round. You're going to be playing one and discarding one every single turn, slowly limiting your choices as far as what types of unit activate at any given point. There's a ton of abilities. There's a planet slowly falling apart around you. It is a game that has strategic depth, a lot of luck, and it's a cinematic experience as you go through it. Don't get me wrong, when I say it's a lot of luck, there's enough luck in there that you definitely have to be prepared to deal with the unknown. You have to be prepared to deal with literally planets falling apart underneath your feet and your troops falling to their death. But you also have enough strategy to go ahead and plan around those things as much as possible. Cysmic is going to give you a very rewarding, very cinematic experience. We have Erune Light and Darkness from Arcadia Studios. This is a reprint and expansion to the original Erune. Erune is an app-based dungeon crawler. You're going to have an app that's going to be driving you through the dungeon. You're going to be opening up doors, opening up rooms, making choices, and then playing those out on the actual board as you try to take down everything and everyone in your way. You're going to be going through a progression of missions. There's a Master of Darkness element, which can either be run by a player or run by the app. You can have that run either way, so you can have a one versus many kind of dungeon crawler, or you can just have a cooperative dungeon crawler and have the app drive everything forward for you. But this is a beautiful production. The art's beautiful, the miniatures are beautiful, everything, the app's well done, everything here is incredibly well produced. This is coming from the company that did, oh my gosh, they did that spaceship one recently that I'm not remembering the name, but they have another one. They do beautifully produced app integrated games. It's going to be Erune Light and Darkness. We have Final Strike from Looking for Greatness. Final Strike is going to be Final Strike is a game in which you're basically trying to take down a boss on the way. That's going to be the thing that you're trying to do the final strike to. But meanwhile, you're upgrading your hand. It's a hand management game or hand upgrading. It's not really deck building. It's hand building. It's a hand building game which you have a bunch of cards. You're going to be slowly replacing those cards with better and better gear as you try to figure out how to get the best gear to slowly take the final strike. Every time you deal wounds to the boss, you will be benefiting from that. But whoever does the final strike to each boss, I believe there's a sequence of 3 bosses you're going through, and that's going to be how you're trying to get points in this game. It is a very fast-paced, accessible game. If you like games like Dominion, Star Realms, that kind of a easy to learn, but with a lot of depth from the card intricacies and the way you try to build out things with the cards in hand, that's going to be what this game gives you. It's a lot of fun, lots of very rewarding, and it has the main conceit, the main aspect of the game is looking at the different types of weapons in front of you and figuring out what pathway of that hand management is going to result in you being able to appropriately and most devastatingly do the final strikes on the various bosses you engage with. We have Firesiege. Firesiege is a cooperative game that in many ways will follow the typical beats of a cooperative game. You do good things, the game does bad things, rinse and repeat until either you win or you lose. Where the game is different, well, there's a bunch of ways the game is different, but the biggest aspect of the game is different is that you have a hand of cards where you can see either the good thing or the bad thing that will happen. Because when I said the game does a good thing and a bad thing, I meant you have a card in hand, you have multiple cards in your hand, and those cards on one side do a good thing and on one side do a bad thing. The problem is you only ever know one of those sides, and your teammates only ever know one of those sides, and you can't directly communicate about, oh, it does this, this, and this. You could say, like, oh, that card's not good for us right now, or that card is good for us right now, so you could give loose information and then see how it all plays out. And that kind of subtle aspect of knowing you have to have bad and good happen all the time, but being able to control around when it's better or worse for you, and being able to work together with your teammates and kind of read the room or read or understand how good something is versus how bad something is, that's going to be one of the ways this game stands out. It's an enjoyable time. I played through this one, or I played through the prototype when I had a chance. This is a very solid, very enjoyable game with a slightly unique twist on the cooperative genre. We have Founders from this way. Founders is going to be a deduction game with a sort of teammate in the game. Sort of teammate, I think, is the key word, because it's not an actual teammate in the typical sense, but your teammate does matter. Basically, in Founders, you're going to have a shared board over here, and you're trying to figure out these different patterns. You're trying to figure out who has shared commonality with you as you place different things to try to score as many points based on these shared patterns. But knowing your teammate's going to help you because you're trying to score based off of the people on both sides of you, so you have to try to be mindful of your scores on each side as you figure out who in each way is going to be working together with you, as you slowly but surely deduce what the board is like and what each player's private goals are and how they all sync up for you. It's a very interesting hidden alliances tile-laying game with a lot of abilities and a very rewarding game. You're going to have Mons And Mages from Thin Liu, an engine building card comboing game where you're going to be gathering cards and slowly laying them out in a sequence and then trying to activate them, but the order of the activation is going to matter a lot. With beautiful production, beautiful art, and a lot of engine building, this is a very compelling experience. We have Mysticana, a Foundations deck from Button Shy Games. This was a very intriguing one in which you have a kind of a foundation to a set of button shy games. The general idea is you're given a hand of cards with different suits and different numbers on them. You have 18 cards, numbers 1 through 6, so with 3 different suits, although of course being button shy, there's ways to expand that. And then you're given a bunch of different games you can play with those, from solo games to competitive games to cooperative games. So effectively, like a deck of cards, it's giving you a structure as well as a bunch of games to start you off, but then the various expansions can either utilize the core game, meaning you could just have games you'll be able to play with those 18 cards, but you can also have cards that utilize the 18 cards, but then hey, here's this little expansion pack of 4 cards that mix up the game, and now those 4 cards combined with the 18, that's going to give you its own little puzzle. And so it has the typical button shy setup of having an 18 card deck with expandable content, but those 18 cards already represent multiple games, and each expandable content is going to add new ways to play through the experience. So if you wanted an interesting way to jump into the button shy universe, this one might be it. We have Neon Rain from Chip Theory Games. So Chip Theory Games, kind of a manual, well, that's tricky. So Neon Rain from Mandy Tremblay. It's actually interesting. I didn't even realize it's on GameFound over here as Chip Theory Games. But Neon Rain is coming to you from Mandy Tremblay. He created his own studio that then Chip Theory kind of acquired as a sub-studio that works underneath them. So it's its own independent studio that is owned by Chip Theory, and they work hand in hand together. But this is from Mandy Tremblay, and this represents a video game universe. In the game, you're basically going to be button mashing, right? Playing cards down and trying to utilize the knob effectively and the various triggers to try to deal damage to your opponent, or to try to read how your opponent's going to operate and try to eliminate the benefits that he's going to do, block his throws, block his attacks, and then try to deal damage back effectively. So it's a kind of button masher, but not in any real-time sense. This is not a real-time game. This is a strategic tactical game of trying to think through what your opponent's going to do and how you can best react or adjust to that. But it also has a strong solo mode where you're facing off against an AI opponent who's stronger, but also not as smart. So you have to deal with that as well. That's going to be Neon Rain. Plays a variety of characters. There's a whole bunch of characters to play through, each with their own unique way that they're going to utilize some of the cards or have their own abilities. We have Rome, Fate of an Empire. A solo game of the month from Gabe Barrett. This one I actually know the least about from all these games, but this was probably the most, this was the most popular game in the solo game of the month by Barrett Publishing. Did 84,000, or I don't know if that's the current number or whatever, but it did incredibly well. It's designed by, oh my gosh, designed by Joe Clipfell, I want to say it's Joe Clipfell, I think it's his name, but he did Gloomhaven. Designed by Joe Clipfell, design of Gloomhaven, Buttons and Bugs. This is compared to Mage Knight from One Stop Glove Shop. Again, compared to Mage Knight as well term. If you like Mage Knight, this game is awesome, you're going to love it. So whatever tactical strategy is going on over here, this one was the most popular game in the solo game of the month club from Barrett Publishing, and you can still pick this one up. We have Steam Power from Wallace Designs. This is the one that had the language editions aspect, so I'm not fully aware if you could back everything. If you go down to the rewards over here, you have different languages over here. Surveyor, Ticket Controller, you can't get, but Ticket Controller of languages, you can. So I'm not fully certain of how that's playing out over here, but this is basically based on the Steam system. So the Steam, there's Railways of the World, there's Age of Steam, all designed by Martin Wallace, but Steam Power seemed to be giving you that core structure, but in a slightly more accessible game, meaning they have the same general elements, but it's supposed to be a drop more accessible. So think, not Ticket to Ride, a whole lot more than Ticket to Ride, a little bit less than Steam or Age of Steam or Railways of the World, and that's where Steam Power is going to land, giving you accessible, understandable gameplay while maintaining the depth of Martin Wallace's train game series. So if you wanted a great way to jump into the train game series, I haven't played this, but it does seem like it's a great opportunity to jump into that genre of games, the 18xx genre, with a gateway 18xx game. We have Street Masters Champion Edition, originally from Blacklist Games, picked up by Steamforge Games. This was a new way to go ahead and jump into Street Masters, either as someone who wants the new content, or someone who never had a chance to pick up Street Masters because, well, you didn't hear about it until it's too late, and then there's Blacklist and all their issues. But this is a campaign that gave you a full reprint options for all the Street Masters content to date, as well as the new expansion content for it, bringing back Radiant Adam Sandler to design new content for the game. Two designers who were theoretically out of the board game universe, but came back once they were not attached to other companies. That's going to be Street Masters. This is a solo or cooperative game of trying to manage your cards, manage your hand, deal with the board and the map as you lay out a sequence of cards, trying to power them up. If you like games like Sentinels of the Multiverse, this is going to be one that has a lot of similar elements. It has what they call the MDS, the modular deck system, which means there's an arena deck, there's an enemy deck, and there's your own deck. And that might seem very familiar to those who played Sentinels of the Multiverse, the idea that you have those different decks, and you're trying to figure out the right combination of cards that will help you outlast your opponents. We have, well, the opponents being the AI enemy in this case. We have Stowii, the portable, adaptable, foldable game table. This is not a game. It's our only non-game on the list, but if you wanted a game table, the Stowii over here, still available to late pledge. This is a table in a box, which is not a sentence you say often these days, or any days for that matter, but if you did want a table in a box, the Stowii from Fantasy Woodworks, the game for anything, folds down into a tiny little activity table and then unfolds into a giant box. So you have a whole bunch of ways you can play out, you can use the table for whatever games you want, but that accessibility, that modularity, that packing aspect to it means you actually could literally travel with it if you wanted. It wouldn't be the most convenient table to travel with, but it would certainly be more convenient than any of your other game tables. That's going to be the Stowii game table. We have Street Fighter V Champion Editions. This is not Street Masters. Street Fighter is a different game than Street Masters, although Street Masters is obviously based on Street Fighter thematically, but Street Fighter V Champion Editions from Colossal Games. This one's been around for a while, that although it has gone through some changes, so if you do look at the campaign page, make sure to also check out the updates before you jump in on this one. But I did have a lot of fun playing through this game. They have dealt with a whole bunch of IP roadblocks in this one, unfortunately, where things that were supposed to have been licensed weren't necessarily licensed, and so the content that was initially promised is being tweaked and adjusted. They have been offering full refunds to previous backers, but if you are someone who's diving into this for the first time, just make sure you check out the updates to make sure you understand what you're actually getting your hands on. But if you are looking for a solid cooperative game, this is definitely one that I enjoyed playing through, that was also difficult enough that it was rewarding, which is a key thing for me. I don't like games that are cooperative or solo games that are too easy. I find that makes them not rewarding. This was definitely not too easy, but it was doable, and that's enough for me. We have Tabletop Inc, which this one over here is here for a variety of reasons. First of all, it falls into the genre we talked about over here, but also they deserve a little love because Tabletop Inc was previously known as Meeple Inc until Hans and Gluck came along and said, hey, we're going to go ahead and threaten you with whatever kind of threats we have because we own the trademarks to the word Meeple, which is a move that hasn't worked great for Hans and Gluck in terms of their general public perception, because everyone who knows about this kind of now thinks of them as the big bad in the space who's threatening smaller companies who won't fight back, because you'll also notice there are many other companies who do use the word Meeple without any issues whatsoever. I don't even know the full list offhand, but at the very least I know AEG has it, because they have Meeple. They have there's that Meeples and Monsters, there's Meeple Terror and Meeple City. There's a bunch of games out there that use the word Meeple with no worry whatsoever. This does feel like a Goliath, going after a little David over here, so it's not a good look for Hans and Gluck. But in the meantime, though, Coswell Games over here did completely rename their game to Tabletop Inc. So they just kind of rolled with it. They haven't really commented. They haven't gotten into it. They just said, hey, we're just going to rename our game. We're going to call it a day. We're just going to not deal with this at all. And so if you do want to go ahead and check out Tabletop Inc., or previously known as Meeple Inc., that Hans and Gluck decided to go ahead and threaten them with, we now have this game over here, which is a worker placement game where you'll be placing down your meeples in different areas on the board in order to produce board games. You're going to be trying to gather the knowledge or the theme or the components or all these different aspects as you try to go ahead and build your board games and put them into tiny little calyxes, which I don't know if they call them calyxes. IKEA hasn't gone after them yet, so who knows. But that's going to be Tabletop Inc. If you want to go ahead and check this one out, if you want to check out a board game about making board games and a worker placement game, that's Tabletop Inc. We also have Twisted Fables. This is an older one that they came back with a big giant deluxe edition. Twisted Fables is a lane battler with a theme of a bunch of just princesses, because there aren't Disney princesses, they're just princesses that Disney then took, when all these things that we know as these various folklore and fables and all that we know from Disney, there's the Disney versions of them, but they're also all based on these things that are more public domain. And so unfortunately that does mean you have these times where you think of something as Disney, where I think of something as Disney when it's not actually Disney. But we have these fables over here, we have these various princesses that Disney has since had versions of those princesses, and we have these in a lane battling game, which you're going to have the miniatures. I think there's this particular campaign, I believe, was only the miniature version of it, the more deluxe version, but it's a lane battle. You take on those princesses, and you go head to head with a bunch of epic women fighting each other with powers and abilities, slowly powering up as you go through this lane battling system. I played the original game way back when, but I did enjoy this one. If you like lane battlers, and I should be very clear on the terms. There's lane battlers where you have like 3 lanes or different cards or whatnot. This is one more like Flash Duel, if you ever played that, where you have a single lane and you're going back and forth, trying to close the distance when you need to strike, trying to greaten the distance when you need to, stay away from it, but that's going to be Twisted Fables over here. We have Witchbound. Witchbound is our 19th campaign over here. We have one more to go. Witchbound is a kind of Myst in a board game form. You're basically going through this open book over here, and this one's still available to late pledge. It's been around for a while, but you're interacting with various characters in this game. You're basically opening a book. You have various thought bubbles, various characters, talking to them, flipping from page to page. It's a kind of choose your own adventure combined with Myst in a board game form. So if you're looking for for something a little on the lighter side that's going to give you a journey to go through, and again, not all pledges are available, but we do have these over here to go through. If you are looking for that kind of more family-friendly gateway experience that's going to give you an enchanting world, crafting potions, discovering secrets, open world exploration and navigation and interaction, all that, Witchbound's going to have that kind of, again, that explorative, choose your own adventure, peaceful vibes. Think, I don't know, Legends of Zelda, but not with any, I don't know, that was about, ignore comparison. Mist plus interaction, whatever it is. That's going to be Witchbound. And lastly, we have Worldspanner Factions. Worldspanner Factions, I think just got reviewed on the Dice Tower, but you still can go ahead and get this one. If you scroll down, you can still go ahead and get various options for this game. But this is basically a reprint of a redone version of Duel of Ages. If you ever played the original Duel of Ages, again, it's been around for a long time. Worldspanner Factions is coming back, taking that same core gameplay and bringing it to your table, so you can go ahead and enjoy that one. That's going to be Worldspanner Factions. It is a epic game with tons of heroes, tons of enemies. Build your own stuff as you go into this one. It's, again, based on Duel of Ages, which has been around for quite some time. That is Worldspanner Factions. And that's what we have over here. 20 campaigns to go ahead and check out if you want to go ahead and, well, check them out. 20 campaigns you may have missed or possibly not looked into enough at the time. A bunch of these I've played and enjoyed. A bunch of these I'm just intrigued by. But these are all campaigns from smaller to mid-range publishers. If you are interested in checking these out, you can still go ahead and late pledge them, at least as of the time of filming. But this video goes up in like a week and a half when I film it, so hopefully those things are still open. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.